Hi, this is Charlie, History Connected, and this is our series History 365, the February edition. If you saw the January edition, then you know what we do here. We do an event a day. I try and pick historical events that are a little bit more obscure, a little bit lesser known, things that might surprise you and go, "Wow, did that really happen?" If you like what you see, give me a like, give me a subscribe, give me a comment, let me know what you're thinking, and without much further ado, let's roll the tape. Mary, Queen of Scots, was executed on February 1st, 1587, after being imprisoned for 19 years. She was accused of plotting to assassinate her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, in a conspiracy known as the Babington Plot. This was more than an execution, it was a political earthquake. Her death eliminated a Catholic rival to the Protestant throne of England, but it also enraged Catholic Europe, particularly Spain, leading to the infamous Spanish Armada just a year later. Mary's legacy is a haunting reminder of the brutal power struggles that defined monarchies, where family ties often turned into death warrants. In 1789, Spanish forces seized the American ship Columbia off the coast of modern-day British Columbia. This act ignited the Nootka Crisis, a diplomatic standoff between Spain and Britain over who controlled the Pacific Northwest. The tension nearly led to war, but diplomacy prevailed. The resulting Nootka Conventions forced Spain to give up its monopoly claims, opening the region to British and American exploration. This moment signaled the decline of Spanish colonial power and set the stage for the westward expansion of two rising empires. On February 3rd, 1959, a plane crash claimed the lives of rock and roll icons Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. But one man narrowly avoided the tragedy: Waylon Jennings. Jennings, then a member of Buddy Holly's band, had given up his seat on the plane to the Big Bopper, who was feeling ill and wanted to avoid the freezing bus ride ahead. In a chilling exchange, Holly joked, "I hope your bus freezes." Jennings replied, "I hope your plane crashes." Those words haunted him for the rest of his life. The crash devastated the music world, cutting short the careers of three rising stars. Jennings went on to become a country music legend, shaping the outlaw movement with hits like Mama Tried and Lukenbach, Texas. Known as The Day the Music Died, the crash became a cautionary tale about the cost of fame and the fragility of life. Don McLean's American Pie ensured their legacy would never be forgotten. On February 4th, 1945, the Yalta Conference brought together three of the most powerful men in history: Winston Churchill, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Joseph Stalin. Meeting in the shadow of World War II's impending end, they carved up the post-war world. At Yalta, the seeds of the Cold War were planted. Stalin secured control over much of Eastern Europe, promising free elections that never came. Meanwhile, Churchill and Roosevelt pushed for the creation of the United Nations, hoping it would prevent another global conflict. The meeting was more than strategy, it was a gamble. While it ended the war, it set the stage for decades of division, mistrust, and the Iron Curtain. The world would never be the same. On February 5th, 1355, a simple argument over bad wine in Oxford spiraled into one of the bloodiest riots in medieval England. It began when two students complained about the quality of their drinks at a local tavern. Insults flew, a mug was thrown, and soon the town's citizens and university scholars were at war. The violence raged for 2 days, leaving nearly 100 people dead, most of them townsfolk. The riot highlighted the deep tensions between the privileged university elite and the working-class townspeople. In the aftermath, Oxford University was granted even more power, and the townsfolk were forced to pay an annual fine for the death of their scholars, a tradition that lasted nearly 500 years. The riot remains a bizarre and tragic symbol of class division in medieval England. On February 6, 1958, a U.S. Air Force bomber accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb on the small town of Mars Bluff, South Carolina. Thankfully, the bomb's core was not installed, so no nuclear explosion occurred, but the conventional explosives inside did detonate, leveling a house and creating a massive crater. Miraculously, no one was killed, though a family nearly did escape serious injury. The bizarre incident became a chilling reminder of the dangers of nuclear weapons during the height of the Cold War. The fallout, pun intended, was both literal and political, sparking public fear and fueling debates over the safety of America's nuclear arsenal. To this day, the crater remains a haunting relic of the accident, a sober reminder of how close disaster can strike. On February 7, 1958, tragedy struck the sporting world when British European Airways Flight 609 crashed during takeoff in Munich, Germany. The flight carried Manchester United's football team, known as the Busby Babes, along with journalists and staff. Icy conditions caused the plane to fail its third takeoff attempt, slamming into a house near the runway. 23 people died, including 8 Manchester United players, while others were severely injured. Among the survivors was team manager Matt Busby, who later rebuilt the team into champions. The disaster wasn't just a loss for football, it was a global heartbreak. It showcased the fragility of human endeavor and the resilience of those left behind. Manchester United's revival became a symbol of hope, with the team famously winning the European Cup a decade later in 1968. In February 1726, Mary Toft, an English peasant woman, convinced the medical world she had given birth to rabbits. Her bizarre claim drew the attention of King George I's personal physicians, who examined her and declared the phenomena real. The truth? It was an elaborate hoax. Mary had inserted animal parts into herself to simulate giving birth, fooling some of the most prominent doctors of the time. The story became a national sensation, proving that the public's fascination with spectacle and scandal is far from a modern creation. The fallout was both comedic and tragic. The scandal humiliated the medical profession, leading to widespread ridicule in the press. Mary's tale is a strange reminder of the lengths people will go to for fame and how quickly society laps up a good story, no matter how bizarre. On February 9, 1546, Anne Askew, a young Englishwoman, was arrested for her Protestant beliefs under the reign of King Henry VIII. Anne's crime? Denying the Catholic doctrine of transubstantiation, the belief that bread and wine literally became the body and blood of Christ. Despite being tortured on the rack, an extreme rarity for a woman, Anne refused to recant. Her defiance made her a target of powerful men determined to stamp out religious dissent. She was burned at the stake later that year, becoming one of the most famous Protestant martyrs of the English Reformation. Anne's story is a haunting reminder of the price of conviction in an era where faith and power were inseparable, and dissent often ended in flames. On February 10, 1518, the infamous dancing plague finally came to an end in Strasbourg, France. For months, dozens of people had been seized by an uncontrollable urge to dance, moving until they collapsed from exhaustion or even death. This bizarre epidemic began when a woman stepped into the street and started dancing, unable to stop. Soon others joined and the plague spread. Local authorities, believing it was caused by overheated blood, made the situation worse by encouraging more dancing, even hiring musicians to quote-unquote cure the afflicted. Though the exact cause remains a mystery, some blame mass hysteria, others ergot poisoning, the dancing plague is a chilling reminder of how psychological and social factors can manifest in ways that defy logic. It left a haunting legacy as one of history's strangest mass phenomena. Beep, 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 beep. On February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela walked free after 27 years of imprisonment, marking the beginning of the end for South America's brutal apartheid system. Mandela's release was broadcast worldwide, with millions watching as he raised his fist in triumph, a symbol of resilience and hope. His imprisonment made him a global icon for justice, and his release paved the way for negotiations to dismantle apartheid. 4 years later, Mandela became South Africa's first black president, leading the nation towards reconciliation. This moment wasn't just freedom for one man. It was a turning point in history, proving that even in the darkest oppression, the fight for equality and justice can prevail. Mandela's legacy remains an enduring beacon for hope and oppressed people everywhere. On February 12, 1861, whispers of a plot to assassinate President-elect Abraham Lincoln reached his inner circle. As Lincoln traveled to Washington, D.C. from his inauguration, conspirators in Baltimore planned to kill him during a public appearance. Alan Pinkerton, founder of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, uncovered the plan. Lincoln's team acted swiftly, rerouting his train and sneaking him through Baltimore under the cover of darkness. Critics mocked the covert journey, dubbing it the Midnight Ride, but the action likely saved his life. This early assassination attempt foreshadowed the violent divisions tearing the nation apart. Though Lincoln survived this plot, he wouldn't escape John Wilkes Booth's bullet 4 years later. The uncovered conspiracy is a reminder of the peril faced by leaders in times of national strife. On February 13, 1945, Allied forces unleashed a devastating firebombing campaign on Dresden, Germany. Over 2 days, waves of incendiary bombs turned the city into an inferno, killing an estimated 25,000 people, most of them civilians. Dresden, known for its art and culture, had little strategic military value. The attack sparked intense debate, while some viewing it as necessary to hasten the end of World War II, while others condemned it as a war crime. The destruction of Dresden remains one of the war's most haunting episodes, raising enduring questions about the morality of targeting civilian populations in warfare. It's a stark reminder of the devastating human cost of war and the fine line between strategy and tragedy. On February 14, 1929, Chicago was shaken by one of the most infamous gangland killings in history, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Members of Al Capone's gang, disguised as police officers, lined up 7 men from a rival gangster, Bugs Moran's crew, and gunned them down in a warehouse. The massacre was a brutal display of power during the Prohibition era, solidifying Capone's dominance in Chicago's underworld. The public outcry over the violence fueled support for ending Prohibition, as an organized crime thrived on illegal alcohol. The event remains a chilling reminder of the lawlessness of the time and the deadly lengths the mobsters would go to maintain control. To this day, it symbolizes the bloody legacy of America's Prohibition years. Today, on February 15, 1633, Galileo Galilei, the father of modern science, was brought before the Roman Inquisition. His crime? Defying the church by promoting the heliocentric theory, the idea that the Earth orbits the Sun. Galileo was forced to recant his views, publicly declaring them false under threat of torture. Yet, as legend has it, he muttered, quote, "And yet it moves," unquote, a quiet defiance that echoed through history. Sentenced to house arrest, Galileo continued to work in secret, laying the foundation for modern astronomy and physics. His trial was more than a clash of science and faith. It was a turning point in the fight for intellectual freedom and a reminder of the cost of challenging established power. On February 16, 1898, the USS Maine, stationed in Havana Harbor, exploded suddenly, killing 260 American sailors. The cause remains a mystery to this day, with theories ranging from a mine to an internal malfunction. The sinking of the Maine became a rallying cry for newspapers, fueling public outrage under the slogan, "Remember the Maine! To hell with Spain!" This event pushed the United States into the Spanish-American War, marking a pivotal moment in U.S. history as it emerged as a global power. Though the true cause of the explosion was never confirmed, the tragedy demonstrates how a single event, whether accidental or deliberate, can alter the course of history and reshape a nation's destiny. On February 17, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy bombers known as Flight 19 vanished during a routine training mission over the Atlantic. Despite clear weather, the pilots reported navigational problems and eerie compass malfunctions before their transmissions abruptly stopped. A rescue plane sent to find them also disappeared, adding to the mystery. Despite an extensive search, no wreckage or bodies were ever recovered. The event became one of the most famous incidents linked to the Bermuda Triangle, fueling decades of speculation about paranormal activity and unexplained phenomena. While theories range from human error to magnetic anomalies, the disappearance of Flight 19 remains an enduring and haunting mystery, capturing the imaginations and spawning countless stories about the dangers of the unknown. On February 18, 1612, the infamous Pendle Witch trials began in Lancashire, England. 10 people, mostly women, stood accused of practicing witchcraft, allegedly causing death and illness through curses. The trial was a spectacle of paranoia, with neighbors turning against each other and confessions extracted under duress. One of the accused, a 9-year-old girl named Janet Device, testified against her own family, sealing their fate. All but one of the accused was found guilty and executed by hanging. Trials exposed the deep fears and superstitions of the era, while accusations of witchcraft often served as weapons in personal disputes. Today, the Pendle witches are remembered as tragic victims of mass hysteria and injustice. On February 19, 1945, U.S. Marines launched an assault on Iwo Jima, a small island in the Pacific held by Japanese forces. The battle was one of the bloodiest of World War II, lasting 5 weeks and claiming nearly 7,000 Americans and over 18,000 Japanese lives. The island's strategic importance lay in its airfields, which the U.S. needed to support bombing missions over Japan. The image of Marines raising the flag on Mount Suribachi became an enduring symbol of American resolve. The victory came at an immense cost, highlighting the brutal nature of the Pacific War. Iwo Jima remains a stark reminder of the sacrifices made in pursuit of victory and the profound human cost of war. On February 20th, 1886, Mount Tarawera in New Zealand violently erupted, destroying nearby villages and the famed pink and white terraces, often called the eighth wonder of the world. The eruption killed over 120 people and forever changed the region's landscape. The night before, eerie lights on Lake Tarawera were reported by locals, fueling stories of supernatural warnings. When the volcano erupted, ash and lava buried entire communities, leaving a desolate wasteland in its wake. The event profoundly impacted Maori culture and sparked scientific studies of volcano activity. Mount Tarawera's eruption serves as a haunting reminder of nature's power and the fragile balance between human life and the environment. On February 21st, 1885, the Washington Monument, a towering tribute to America's first president, was officially dedicated in Washington, D.C. At 555 feet, it was the tallest structure in the world at the time, symbolizing the enduring legacy of George Washington. The construction spanned decades, plagued by funding issues, political disputes, and even the Civil War. The monument's simple yet imposing design reflects the reverence Americans hold for Washington's leadership and integrity. Today, the Washington Monument stands as a powerful reminder of the ideals of unity and perseverance, towering above the National Mall and inspiring generations to honor the principles upon which the United States was founded. On February 22, 486 BC, a moment in ancient Persia laid the foundation for the Jewish festival of Purim. Queen Esther, a Jewish woman, courageously revealed her identity to King Xerxes to stop the genocidal plot of Haman, the king's advisor. Haman had planned to annihilate all Jews in the empire, but Esther's bravery turned the tables. The king condemned Haman to death, and the Jewish people were saved. This moment of triumph over persecution has been celebrated as Purim ever since. The story of Esther is a timeless reminder of courage in the face of injustice and the power of standing up for what's right, even when the stakes are unimaginably high. On February 23, 1836, Mexican forces led by General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna laid siege to the Alamo, a small mission-turned-fort in San Antonio, Texas. Inside, fewer than 200 Texan rebels, including figures like James Bowie, William B. Travis, and Davy Crockett, prepared for a hopeless stand. For 13 days, the defenders held out against thousands of Mexican troops. Though the Alamo fell on March 6th, the battle became a rallying cry for Texas independence. Remember the Alamo galvanized Texan forces, leading to victory at the Battle of San Jacinto and the eventual creation of the Republic of Texas. The Alamo stands as a symbol of courage and sacrifice, where a small group of rebels faced overwhelming odds for the dream of freedom. On February 24, 1942, the Japanese cargo ship Montevideo Maru left Rabaul carrying over 1,000 Allied prisoners of war and civilians. Unbeknownst to the Allies, the ship had no markings indicating it was carrying POWs. Tragically, on July 1, 1942, the Montevideo Maru was torpedoed by an American submarine off the Philippines, sinking within minutes. None of the prisoners survived. It was Australia's worst maritime disaster with over 850 Australians lost. The sinking of the Montevideo Maru is a heartbreaking reminder of the chaos and miscommunication of war, when even those who surrendered were not spared its horrors. Its story is a somber chapter in the legacy of World War II. On February 25, 1959, Soviet authorities uncovered the remains of 9 hikers in the icy wilderness of the Ural Mountains. What they found defied explanation. Their tent had been slashed open from the inside, abandoned in the middle of the night despite freezing temperatures. The hikers were scattered across the snow, some barefoot, others in various states of undress. But it was their injuries that added an eerie twist. One had a fractured skull, another had broken ribs, and one was missing her tongue. Strangely, there were no signs of an external attack, and traces of radiation were later found in their clothing. Theories have run wild: avalanches, secret military experiments, UFOs, or even supernatural forces. Yet over 60 years later, no definitive answer has emerged. The Dyatlov Pass incident is a chilling reminder of how the wilderness can guard its secrets and how fear of the unknown can haunt us long after the footprints vanish. On February 26, 260 AD, the Roman Emperor Valerian suffered a catastrophic defeat at the hands of Persian King Shapur I during the Battle of Edessa. This marked the first time in Roman history that a sitting king was captured alive by an enemy. Valerian spent the remainder of his life in captivity, reportedly subjected to humiliation, including being used as a human footstool by Shapur. His death was equally as grim. Some accounts claim he was skinned alive. The repercussions were devastating for Rome. Valerian's capture shattered the empire's prestige, emboldened its enemies, and intensified internal strife. The event symbolized the chaos of the crisis of the 3rd century, a period of near collapse for the Roman Empire. It remains a stark reminder of the fragility of even the mightiest of empires. On February 27, 1933, the German Reichstag building in Berlin was engulfed in flames. The fire broke out just weeks after Adolf Hitler was appointed chancellor, and it became a pivotal moment in his rise to power. Authorities arrested a Dutch communist, Marinus van der Lubbe, who had been found near the scene and quickly blamed for the blaze. However, many historians believe the Nazis orchestrated the fire themselves to frame the communists and create a pretext for consolidating power. The day after the fire, Hitler convinced President Paul von Hindenburg to issue the Reichstag Fire Decree, suspending civil liberties and enabling mass arrests of political opponents. This marked the beginning of Nazi Germany's transformation into a totalitarian state. The Reichstag fire stands as a chilling example of how fear and manipulation can dismantle democracy and usher in tyranny. On February 28, 1693, the Salem witch trials officially came to an end when Governor William Phips pardoned the remaining accused individuals and declared the trials over. The hysteria had begun the year before, resulting in over 200 accusations of witchcraft, 20 executions, and widespread fear in the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The trials unraveled when public opinion shifted and leaders began questioning the validity of the spectral evidence, the testimony of visions and dreams. Many of the accusers later recanted, and the community was left to grapple with guilt and shame over the injustices committed. The Salem witch trials remain a stark warning of the dangers of mass hysteria, fear-mongering, and unchecked authority. They serve as a somber reminder of how quickly reason can be overtaken by fear, leading to devastating consequences.